Welcome to the Adventure Effect Live with Tom and Curtis. We are very excited to be starting this new podcast series called the Adventure Effect Live, where we are going to be talking to some amazing people who have done some amazing things in the world of adventure. And we're going to be talking to them about the lessons that they've learned on these adventures and how those adventures have impacted them in their day-to-day lives. So Helen, thanks so much for joining us. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for inviting me.
Now, Helen is an amazing woman. She dared to dream and was one of 4 women who rowed across the North Sea, the first women to do that, and then rowed across the Atlantic, breaking a Guinness World Record. She wrote a book called 4 Mums in a Boat, which is a bestseller about her experience. So tell us, how did this crazy adventure come about? Because you had done some rowing, but you had never done anything quite so extreme. Tell us how this came about.
No, so I was probably, I'd say, in my early 40s when I just had this kind of yearning to learn a new skill, and I was probably a bit bored. So I had some time to kill on a Saturday morning, so I decided to learn to row on the river. So I learned to row on the river, and I met my 3 rowing friends, learning a new skill. In fact, we were all together in the same boat on the same day, rowing up and down the river, not doing it very well, I have to say. We did get disqualified for on a few races. So I did that basically for about 3 years, every Saturday morning, and it was really tough. I found river rowing really hard. But what kept me going when it was, cold and wet and ice on the river was the friendship that I'd built up with these 3 other women. So that's what kind of kept me going. We just had this amazing bond. I do feel we were meant to meet each other. And then Frances, then one evening, we were out for dinner, and she just suggested she'd seen this rowing race, the Talisker Whiskey Atlantic Challenge. And she asked us if we'd like to row across the Atlantic. And because I'd already kind of had this knowing that I wanted to do something that would challenge me physically and mentally, I'd already planted that seed in my head. So when she asked me, I immediately said yes, even though there was if I'd thought about it, everything was against me doing it. I had children, young children, I worked full time. So, everything, I had tons of barriers, but because I didn't think, I just went with my gut instinct. I said yes, and I just thought I'll make this happen. So that's how it came about. We'd never done anything like that before, ever.
And how was that process for you of completing that and coming back?
So we knew that that it was a very risky thing that we were doing on many levels. So we planned the adventure. We gave ourselves around 2.5 years to plan the adventure. So we had to learn all the new skills. We had to learn how to row an ocean rowing boat. We had to know how the ocean rowing boat worked. This was an unsupported row. So once you're out in the Atlantic Ocean, there's nobody there to do anything for you. So we had to learn all the electrics, all the equipment. We had to do survival at sea, first aid at sea. We had to do our Yachtmaster Ocean. We had a lot of things to do. And in order to make this happen, we had to break it into kind of small chunks to make it possible. So that's what we did. We had to raise around £120,000 to get to the start line, which wasn't easy because people who do this race are normally young men. So 4 women who were all mums, people didn't think we were going to do it. So that was another piece of our challenge, was persuading people that we were actually going to do this. So we had a lot to do to just get to the start line. But we did it. We got to the start line. We rowed across the North Sea first because we needed some sea experience. So that took about 45 hours, and that was part of our planning. That had a very different challenge to the Atlantic, because it didn't give us the huge 40-foot waves we experienced on the Atlantic, but it was the busiest shipping channel in the world. So we had to navigate a tiny, slow ocean rowing boat around huge tankers who probably didn't see us. So we spent a lot of time on the VHF radio, and I learned that I was very seasick on that journey. So then we had to plan for how I was going to do the Atlantic crossing, which we did. So the process was, in order to make this happen, we also had to have a lot of support around us. So it was about selling this dream that we all had to our families, because we couldn't have done this without their support. You know, my children were kind of 10 and 12. I can't just go off for 3 months and leave them. So we had to sell our dream to everybody else, which wasn't easy. But we all managed to do it, and we had huge support from our families and friends and complete strangers. You know, the amount of people who wanted to get involved and wanted to be part of our land crew who we didn't even know. It was just an amazing experience. But again, it's just about, you know, I don't know how I'm going to do this. It's a massive thing I've got to do, but just knowing inside that you will find a way, it will all work out. And we all had that strong belief in ourselves that it was going to work out. I don't know where it came from, but we had this belief that it was going to work.
That is part of the beautiful thing about going on big adventures and stepping into the unknown, is that you discover that inner sense of, I'm going to be okay. This is difficult and scary, but it just comes from inside.
Yeah.
You mentioned before, when you were talking about how you started rowing on the river and you had this call to do something bigger, something that would challenge you. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like what did that feel like in your body, like when you were thinking, I've got to do something?
Yeah, well, I didn't really know what it was. I just had a real strong feeling inside me that I really wanted to do something that challenged me mentally and physically, but I didn't know what that was. And I watched a program. I watched I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. And I remember watching Melanie Sykes, who was my age, on that program. And she was doing so well and beating all the younger people and the men at challenges. And I remember thinking, so she kind of inspired me to think, well, actually, I want to do something like that. So it just came into my head. I don't know where it came from. It just did. So then when the opportunity then was presented to me, and you know, I often say that I'm a big believer, if you put something out into the universe, it happens if it comes from a positive place, and then you don't think about it anymore. You just put it out there as a wish, oh, I'd like to do that. Forget about it. It will, in my experience, I get that back. So when I did get that back, I didn't think about it. Because, you know, we know as coaches that if you think about something, that thoughts aren't real in your head. So luckily for me, subconsciously, I just didn't think about the issues around doing it. I just knew I wanted to do it. And because I wanted to do it, I would make it happen. And that's what we say to lots of people, you know, anything is possible. You've just got to want it. And if you really want it, you'll definitely find a way. That's the key.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. So Tom had mentioned that like inner desire before, inner effect. And one of the conversations that we've been having is the impact of adventure on consciousness, or adventure consciousness. And so it'd be great, just for the sake of this conversation, to explore how did this adventure that you went on impact your consciousness and the way that your internal systems fire now that you're on the other side of the adventure in your daily life.
Yes. So I found that when I was actually on the ocean, in the middle of the ocean, land is thousands of miles away. Mm-hmm. The thing to me felt like space. So I just felt it was I was privileged to be in this other world. And when you're rowing 2 hours on, 2 hours off, you're sleeping for about an hour at a time. It is really extreme, and you're doing that for 67 days. So it is really extreme. And I felt that, and with all the other women as well, I felt that our true selves then came to the fore. So for that, I do talk a lot about how people add on lots of layers to themselves, to their personas. So you're a child, you're then a wife, you're then a career woman, you're then a mother, you're then and you have all these different layers. And I definitely lost who I was. But then when I went onto the ocean, I found who I was, because your true self comes to the fore because you're in that extreme situation. So I found that when I was on the ocean, I was quite strong because I knew. And if you read the book, it's all in the book, that I was the one who was the goofy one, because I believe in the universe and I believe in all of that kind of stuff. So I was kind of, Helen's the goofy one. But actually, when we actually got on the ocean, I was actually the strongest one on that boat, because I had this belief system that I just knew that we were going to get to the other side and we were going to survive. So when we were in a hurricane for about 72 hours, my rowing friends were saying, I think we're going to die tonight. We're going to die tonight. And I was going, no, we're not. Because I know inside that we will get to the other side. So my positivity definitely came to the fore, because for me, I felt I had no option. We had to get from A to B. So I might as well do that in a positive frame of mind rather than not, because I had no option. Nobody was going to come and help us. We couldn't give up. Mindset for me was really, really important. So they say this challenge is 20% physical and 80% mental. And that is so true. So true. A lot of teams give up within the first 5 days, A, because they can get rescued. And B, because it's a baptism of fire. So a lot of teams say, I don't want to do this anymore, and they get rescued. So if you can get past those 5 days, I thought in my head, then we'll get to the other side. So basically my layers I lost my layers on that journey. And I realized so I was definitely a different person when I got to Antigua. And the race organizer, he says that the people I shake hands with in La Gomera and say goodbye and let go of the rope are very different people when they get to Antigua. And I thought, that's a load of rubbish. I'm a 40-odd-year-old woman. I've got children. But that was so true. That experience of being in that extreme environment definitely changes you. And you do find your true self. I think if you don't have to row an ocean to do that. I think you need to put yourself out of your comfort zone, really, to do that.
What I heard from that is that the ocean doesn't care if you're a mum or a wife, or a businesswoman or whatever. The ocean is just doing the ocean, and you have to fit in.
So I talk about that as in, for me, there were 6 characters in our adventure. There was 4 of us, the boat who was amazing, our boat Rose, and the Atlantic, which I've said tried to kill us every single day. It wasn't our friend, that ocean.
Mm-hmm. But I imagine on other occasions it really was your friend.
Not many, I have to say. Not many occasions, because if it was really calm, then you found it really difficult to row. You're rowing and hardly moving. It'd be like rowing in treacle. And then when it was really rough, waves were coming at you from all angles. So it was really scary, and the risk of capsize is very, very high. And we just didn't want to capsize. That was my main fear on that boat, was capsizing, because I couldn't work out how it would, if I was rowing on the boat and we suddenly capsized, I couldn't work out in my head how I would survive that. But so we basically rowed the boat as best we could to avoid capsize. But no, the ocean was not that nice to us, I have to say.
Mm-hmm. So what was that like for 67 days being that close to the mortal enemy?
Yeah, you're on high alert the whole time, basically, which is why I struggled when I got off the boat, because you're basically living on your adrenaline for 67 days.
It's quite a thing. So how has this whole enterprise affected your work, your relationships, your family since you've come back? Because you said that you left Spain as one person and you arrived in Antigua as a different person. You talked a little bit about the adrenaline hangover.
Yeah.
How was it reintegrating, and how have your family and the people around you, how have they changed as a result of this?
Yeah, so I thought, we planned this adventure really well for 2.5 years, and we just planned to get to Antigua. We didn't plan anything after that. And I presumed that I would get to Antigua and I would feel really happy that I'd achieved it. I'd be great. I'd come home and that would be it. What I wasn't expecting was, as soon as I got to Antigua, I did feel really sad, because I think we'd basically, when we were waiting to row into Antigua, we were about 15 miles off Antigua, and it was dark. So we basically put our power anchor out about 15 miles off Antigua, and basically stayed there until 7 o'clock in the morning. And then we rowed in and got to Antigua for about 9 o'clock in the morning when it was light, because it's quite a tricky marina to get into. So when we were kind of sitting there, we all kind of didn't want it to finish. We didn't want it to end. And we talk a lot about this with businesses when we do project workshops, about the fact that actually you need to plan for the fact that if you do something, you will feel this dip because you don't want it to end. It's a bit like a bereavement, because it's finished, it's over, and you spent 2.5 years of your life organizing it, and now it's finished. So we didn't kind of plan for that, how we would feel about that. And that's something that I learned doing the adventure. And then when I got to Antigua, I just felt I felt happy, but I felt really sad. And when I got back to England, I met my family when I got back to England, and it was really, really hard. And the children noticed that, I wasn't the same person as the person that I'd left. And I did feel really down for about 18 months, which was really annoying, because we were doing fun stuff. We were going to Buckingham Palace, we were going on TV, we were doing book tours, we were doing film festivals around the world with the documentary. It was, on paper, it was better than doing the adventure, really. But I just felt miserable for that whole time. And it took me a while. In hindsight, I should have had some sort of therapy, I think, when I'd finished. But I definitely think that's why these professional adventurers do one thing after another, because I think they do a dip. I think I've seen Ben Fogle talk about an adrenaline hangover. And then, you feel that the best way to cure that is to do something else. My family did notice that I was different, and it did take me about 18 months. I think actually interesting, what I did was, because I was missing my family so much for those 67 days, I turned my emotions off, because I was adamant that I wasn't going to cry on this journey. Because I'd seen the documentary with Ben Fogle and James Cracknell, and they cried the whole way across their Atlantic crossing. And I was like, I am not going to cry. I'm not going to cry. So I turned my emotions off, to deal with the fact of missing my family and doing the adventure. And then I think it took me about 12 months for me to thaw. I explain it like I was thawing out.
Mm-hmm.
Have much emotion when I got off the boat. I was thawing out, and it took me about 18 months to kind of be me again.
So at the 18-month mark, when you thawed out and you were able to reintegrate back into society, who were you? Like we talked a little bit about your internal systems. How did your consciousness and the way that you relate to the world around you change once you had thawed yourself out and come emotionally re-entered society?
Yeah, so basically how I'm different now is that I definitely believe in myself. And I think believing in myself is definitely my superpower. I think going forward, other people who have read the book and we've spoken to have said that the one thing that they've taken away from what we did, that they've taken on themselves, is that self-belief. And also, I'm not fearful of failure at all. So I'm more likely to, if someone asks me to do something and I think, well, I've never done that before, I just know that, well, I'll have a go. If I don't succeed, then at least I've tried. I don't feel bad about not succeeding in something. For me, it's more important about having a go and enjoying the journey rather than the end result. So for me, that's failure in my life before has stopped me doing so many things because I was fearful of failing. But now I see failure as a positive thing.
Mm-hmm. And how's that impacted your kids and your friends? Because that rubbed off on them at all?
Well, Lucy said that that me doing this adventure and putting myself out of my comfort zone and doing something big, she now sees the world in a wider way. So she will more. So she feels that she's more likely to go off and and do things. My kids, I've asked them about, do you have a fear of failure? And both of them have said no, they don't. So I don't know if that's a generational thing, or I don't know if this is the modern world now. It's very different to when I was their age. But both of them don't seem to have a fear of failure. Henry's driven by ambition. So they're both very different. He's driven by ambition, and he will just have a go at things. He doesn't seem to be fearful of anything. But Lucy's driven by her emotions. So that's trickier, I think, because she can't control the people who she puts her emotions on. She can't control that. So that worries me a bit, I have to say. But hopefully my positivity will inspire the whole family just to have a go at what they want to do. But for me, it's about not thinking about it too much and not listening to your thoughts because they're not real, and listening to your gut instinct and doing what you feel is right and not thinking too much about it.
The other part of what you mentioned, which is really strong for both of us as well, is just allowing the universe to make it happen.
Yeah.
You set an intention and you thought about it, and then down the road this opportunity presented itself, and you got out of the way and you were like, yeah, we can do that for sure. And then the details just took care of themselves, which is not to say you didn't put in the hard work, but the universe opened up the door and you became the channel for this thing to appear in the world that was impossible. Yeah, and it's happened to me on numerous occasions. It's happened to me. It happened to me in relation to our next challenge that we're doing. I was very unsettled, and inside I thought I need to do something else, and I put it out there. And instantly I got an opportunity to do our next challenge, which is a cycling one. I'd never ridden a bike. I didn't even own a bike. But now I've been riding a bike for a year and I feel like I can actually do this challenge. But
that was me saying, I want another challenge. And literally within 5 minutes, the opportunity came to me again.
That is amazing.
I know. So my universe things come to me really quickly. But yeah, but definitely the thing with the universe thing is not to think about it, because if you think about it, your negative thoughts will come into your head, and then that will be the barrier for allowing it to happen. So you know, it's quite tricky to do. It's quite tricky to do, but I was definitely doing it subconsciously. I've done it all my life and I didn't realize I was doing it. I didn't know what the universe was. I didn't know what the secret was. I didn't know any of that stuff, but I can remember doing it when I was young, and kind of wishing for something, visualizing what I wanted, coming from a good place, visualizing it, and I did receive what I visualized.
Amazing.
So I've done it all my life. I just I didn't know what it was.
So how does it feel to come back to that thing that you did when you were young, as an adult in your, you know, midlife, and tap back into that? Does it bring back a sense of youthfulness or adventure, trust? How does that change your day-to-day life?
Well, I'm just, you know, I actually bought my children The Secret for teenagers,
Mm-hmm.
because I wanted to give them that gift of, you know, the world is your oyster. It really is. And there's this amazing way of living. And if you read this book and you're a positive person and everything's coming from a good place, you will get back what you want out of life. And it's so I actually bought them that book and said, look, as a mother, I'm giving you this great secret. Whether they kind of took that on board or not, I don't know. But I just feel really lucky that I think naturally I am I've always been a very positive person, always. So I think that's why I tend to attract what I would like to have out of life, because I am naturally a positive, can-do person. I didn't always believe in myself so that's why I didn't do lots of things, because I was scared of failure. But that's one of the things that now I'm older, you know, I understand. And I think you have to go through life though sometimes, but that's why I like talking in schools, because I like talking to the children, and we were just saying that children see possibilities, not problems, but then some way along the line children lose that and start seeing problems when they get older. So yeah, so it's just my little dog. So yeah, so I think we need to find a way of children not losing that positive possibility, seeing everything as possibilities, because I don't know what happens. Something happens to change that. It's probably experience of life. I don't know.
Mm.
So tell us about the next challenge.
So yes, so we raised all our money for Maggie's, which is a cancer caring centre in Leeds, and they're all around the UK, and they're in Barcelona, and there's one in Hong Kong. My dad died of pancreatic cancer, so very quickly, about 12 years ago. So he was the driver for me to do what I did, because I wanted to give something back. If we'd had a Maggie's when he was dying, his end of life would have been so much better, as would ours. So that was the driver for me. There was a pupil at my son's school who was dying of cancer when we rode the Atlantic, and that child actually got me off my seat every night, because I used to lie there thinking, if he can go to school and if he can do all the stuff that he's doing when he's in such pain and he's dying, it was just awful. I used to think about him and think, well, I can get on this seat and row this boat. So he was a massive inspiration for me whilst I was doing my journey. That's another thing I think you need. You need some sort of inspiring story in your head to get you through those really tough things if you're doing a challenge, and he was mine. So Maggie's opened in September, and we went to the opening, and we'd raised a lot of money for Maggie's. So it was great to actually see the centre opening. It's an amazing space. And that's when I was sitting around the Maggie's kitchen table, which is like the famous kitchen table. And that's when I said to Jeanette, the other rowing friend, I feel unsettled. I want to do something else. And then a man came over to talk to us who said, oh, I've always wanted to talk to you girls about resilience and you know, sort of how you have resilience. And he just cycled across America, cycled across Japan. So within 5 minutes of meeting him, we'd organised to do another charity adventure for Maggie's, which was cycling from Maggie's Leeds to Maggie's Barcelona. So it's 1,000 miles through 3 countries. And so at that point, when I met Chris, I didn't even have a bike. So as soon as we'd organised to do that, I bought a bike. I've been cycling a lot ever since. That was a good thing about the pandemic. The roads have been clear. I've been able to just get on my bike and cycle everywhere. So that's our next challenge. And for me, it's meaningful because I'm not running the London Marathon. I have no motivation to do anything like that that's organised. For me, my adventures, I want to design them myself, and they need to be meaningful. So this is really meaningful. It's because it's going from one Maggie's to the one in Barcelona. So it's going to be great.
That's super exciting.
Sounds like quite a challenge.
Yeah. And we also want people to do it with us, because obviously people couldn't row the Atlantic with us, but we've designed the route through Belgium, France and Spain, so people can hop on a plane and do a bit of the route with us. So we're really hoping a lot of people will do that.
So as we move into the second half of this conversation, first of all, thank you so much for sharing your amazing story. What a inspiration you are. As we move into the second half of the conversation, what are the challenges that you're currently facing with either with regards to this new cycling adventure or just in life in general? And is there anything that you would like to walk away from this conversation with, a challenge overcome, or how can we support you in the achievement of your goals in the second half of this conversation?
Well, I think for me, the challenge, I don't feel like I feel like my cycling challenge is on track. I don't have any worries about that. I guess for me is, I don't know whether this is the right place, whether you want to talk about this, but for me, the barriers and the challenges is that I've got at the moment is I qualified as a coach last August, and it's about building my coaching business because that's my passion. That's what I want to do. And that seems to be my barrier. I can't seem to be able to, I'm so busy doing lots of other things because I do lots of things work-wise, but my real passion is coaching. And I guess if I needed any help from anybody, it's about how I can start, how I can have a career as a coach all the time, basically, not just do bits and pieces here, there and everywhere. So that's kind of my passion. That's what came out of the adventure. I knew, because I'd coached people on the boat along the way to help them. I knew that that's what I wanted to do, but it's so hard to then turn that dream into a paid job, basically, which is what I want to do. I want to be able to work virtually. I want to have clients all around the world. And I want to earn money out of doing out of my passion, which is coaching. So I guess that's my problem, if I've got a problem.
Do you know anyone else who has already done this thing that you want to do?
Earning money out of being a coach?
Yeah. And building the kind of practice that you want to have.
No, I don't actually.
Mm.
There's I think there's one person who I've met who is very similar to me, who has been coaching for a long time. And she's kind of said to me that she's happy to talk to me and be a mentor. I think that's one of the things that I need to do. I need to look for somebody who is very successful and who could be my coach. I think I need to invest in me in relation to coaching and have my own mentor coach.
Because it seems to me that if you can row across the Atlantic and set up a cycling trip, 1,000-mile cycling trip, that it's not a matter of whether you can do it or not, it's a matter of when.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
Like there are a lot more people who are successfully doing what you want to do professionally than have rowed across the North Sea or planned a 1,000-kilometer cycling trip. So if you're in a percentage of people who have done an extraordinary thing that very few are willing to attempt, the number of people who are successfully operating in the world that you've described as a coach is exponentially greater than that. So if you can do something extraordinary, exponentially extraordinary, then you should be able to do something that's merely extraordinary.
I know. It's just, I seem to just be hitting brick walls, really.
So what kind of
something's stopping me, and I don't know what it is.
What kind of a practice do you want to have? Like,
well,
what's your ideal life?
Yeah, so I thought that I wanted to be a pre and post adventure coach, to coach people who were preparing themselves for adventures and then work with them afterwards. But I have done that. But when I did that, I found coaching those people really difficult because I wanted to tell them what to do. So I found it really hard. So then I realized when I've coached some other people, some kind of business people, I find that a lot easier because I'm not in their world. So I can really ask the curious questions because I literally don't know what they're going to tell me. So I find it easier to coach people who are probably not planning adventures. I feel in relation to the training that I've done, I can actually coach anybody. I could coach young people and I can coach a chief executive of an organization. Because to me, it's, once you have those tools and those skills, it's the people who come up with their own answers. And I remember reading something whereby they said, just think about if you were coaching Bill Gates and he'd lost his memory. You wouldn't tell Bill Gates how to run a business. You would ask him questions about that. And that kind of really came home to me to say, well, yes, of course, I wouldn't tell, if he'd lost his memory, he hadn't realized he'd built up this huge business. As a coach, I wouldn't be telling him how to start a business. I'd be asking him the questions for him to tell me. So I feel like I could coach anybody, and I could coach anybody now as well, because I've done coaching like this on Zoom because of the pandemic. So I do feel now that the world's opened up.
Tom asked you a really powerful question, and it's really good to hone in on that specific bandwidth of who do you want to engage. And Tom had asked you, who do you want to coach? And so let's put all of the other stories aside and let's just get into that piece. Anything that's not related to the specific aspects of the people that you want to coach, let's leave off the table. Let's play there.
So who do I want to coach?
Who do you want to coach?
Anybody who wants to be coached. So for me, I'm happy to coach anybody who wants to be coached. I think that's the key for me. There are a lot of people who think, oh, I'll have a coach, but they don't really want to be coached, and they're quite tricky to coach. But anybody who invests in the coaching ethos, I would be happy to coach.
What does it mean to you to want to be coached?
Me to be coached.
No, you said you want to work with people who want to be coached. So
Yes.
what does that mean to you?
So, well, again, that came from experience. I've just coached somebody who really invested in the whole ethos of coaching, and she invested in everything. She did the homework that we set. She read the books that I suggested. And by the end of the coaching, she had shifted so far. And I just got so much satisfaction out of coaching her. And I thought to myself, wow, you know, when I was kind of thinking about the whole system and how she'd shifted and changed, and I thought, why has that happened? She's done this, not me. And it was because she had invested in the whole coaching, the whole coaching thing. So for me,
what was it about her and where she was at the beginning of the journey that prepared her to invest in it?
I think she was at the end of a tether. I think she really was in quite a low place. She'd lost a mojo, and she was at quite a low place. So that's why she came for coaching. I think she really needed it. And that's why she came for coaching. But the progress she made in 6 months was just amazing. And I feel honored to have had that 6 months with her because she gave me so much. And it was just great to see her shifting. So that's why I say I want to coach people who genuinely want to be coached, because there's some people who don't really invest in it, and I just feel I can't help them. So people who want to be coached.
So what's really powerful is to get specific. You decided that you wanted to do something before you rowed across the North Sea. You were bored, you had a desire for change, and then, you know, one day you decided to take up rowing, and that led you to this adventure. And so right now with the coaching, what I'm seeing, and I might be wrong, is that you're kind of in the same place as when you were bored and you needed something.
Yeah.
And then you locked in on rowing. And then you rowed across the Atlantic. And then you came back and you're like, whew, I need something else. And you're in that expansive place. And all of a sudden you locked in on cycling, and now you're doing that. Right?
Yeah.
And so coaching a client is a lot like going on an adventure. We're in this really expansive place. Oh, we're gonna coach. Okay, great. Now, do you want to coach people around nutrition, adventure, business? Do you want to coach people who are executives? Do you want to coach on adventure? Do you want to coach on, like, there's so many things. And so right now, you're in that expansive place, and we're inviting you to bring it back in to something specific. And you've already said you don't want to coach on pre and post adventure. So that's, you definitely don't want to coach there.
No.
So it's not true that you want to coach anybody. You want to coach anybody that is not in a pre or post adventure place. That's more specific.
Yeah.
Right? So you'd mentioned business, that you enjoy business, that they're in a different world. And business executives, it's come up a number of times.
Yeah.
So what if you got specific and, you know, you've mentioned business and other times, are there any other subjects or areas of interest that would be as prominent as business? Because when we start to get specific, then we can give the right people the invitation.
Yes. And I think you're right. I think for me, I would be interested in, if I had to hone it down, I think I would be interested in business people, because I think business people would maybe have the belief that they can do things. Maybe if there were high level business people that I was coaching, they would have the belief that they can do things and invest in things.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, maybe if I'm saying business, maybe I need to not just say, right, I'm open for anybody, because then I feel Yeah, you're right. It's like, I'm going to row across the Atlantic and I'm just going to do it. It's going to be really tricky to do that. I've got to put it into chunks.
Yeah.
And do it a bit at a time. So maybe I need to, in order to get started, I need to focus on an area and then invest some time in making contacts and networks within that area in order to start, rather than thinking I'll coach anybody, and I'll coach children, I'll coach young people, I'll coach anybody because I think I can. But maybe that's too much of a wide expanse. I'm just not going to get anywhere because it's too big.
So we can narrow it down even further, right? If we're going to say that we're going to work with business people, what are you going to help them achieve? Is it that they have a big vision that you're going to crystallize for them? Is it that they have a specific challenge that you're particularly suited to deal with around resilience or failure or fear or the unknown? Like, what is it that is really exciting to you as a topic? So for us, for example, we love working with people who have a big vision. We love working with people who want to enrich humanity, right? Who have this sense of destiny within them that they can't quite put their finger on, right? And we've got very clear about that.
And people who are playing in the realm of adventure consciousness.
Interesting.
And so imagine if you walked into a restaurant, right? Well, let's go back even. Let's say you're gonna go out with a friend and she calls you up, she's like, hey, let's go for lunch. And you're like, great. And the two of you go, okay, well, where do you want to go for lunch? And you're like, let's go to a restaurant. And your friend's like, okay, which restaurant do you want to go to? And you both want to go to a restaurant and you're not being specific. Like, how far is that plan going to get? It's not going to get very far, right? And so let's say you choose a restaurant. Let's say you go to like Bill's Barbecued Brisket, right? And so you go to Bill's and you sit down and the waitress says, would you like me to bring you anything? And you're like, yes. What would you like me to bring you? I don't know, bring me anything. Right? It's really hard for that person to serve you. And you have this massive network from planning these adventures of people who love Helen Butters and who have been invested in your success. And those people are probably eager to find another way to invest in your success because they've built this relationship with you, right? They've watched the entire 2.5-year journey. They've watched your journey across the Atlantic. They've heard the stories when you come back. They've probably bought your book. They're probably enrolling in your next adventure. So you have this huge world of people. And if you tell these people, hey, I'm going to start coaching, who do you want to coach? Anybody. Well, that's too much information for them to bring you a person who needs your coaching.
Yeah.
And when you say business, now you're at the restaurant, right? You're more specific, but
we need to finalize the menu.
We need to finalize the menu.
Yeah.
Right? And part of that process is understanding what your superpowers are, understanding what your story is, because once you understand what your superpower is, then you can engineer who is the person who needs my superpower in the business world. And once you know who that person is and what you're offering them, then you can learn how to tell your story in such a way that it relates powerfully to that person, because that person is going to connect to perhaps where you were before you went on your adventure, the process that you went through on your adventure, and who you became afterwards. And if you can communicate, I was over here and now I'm over here and this is the process that I went through, they're going to go, oh my God, Helen was where I am and she is where I want to be, and she can help me get there. Even though she played in a completely different world, I know that she can help me get there, and I want to work with her because her story is fun and exciting.
Yeah, no, you're right. No, you're completely right. So that's, yeah, no, that's great.
So I have a question for you, Helen. Who do you know? Can you think of one person, one like specific person right now who operates in the business world who you know has a challenge that you would be really interested in solving?
I mean, I do help a lot of people, but I don't charge them for doing it, who are doing adventures and things like that, just because I just want to help them and stuff like that. But there is one person who I would know in the business world who would be a really, really good contact, who is also on the board of Maggie's, which is the charity that we did. So just, you know, like you said, he's lived my adventure for the whole time, and he is actually on the so he knows me, but he's also very, very well networked business world.
So what happens if you arrange a call with him, or in person might be difficult, but you know, a Zoom call or a phone call, and you just connect with him and you know, catch up, exchange news, how's it going, what are your challenges right now?
Yeah, I like that. I like how you've said I like the words that you're using, because you're using the words adventure and challenge in a business world. I like that. Yeah.
And then he tells you something, a challenge or a struggle, and you say, would you like some help with that? I tell you what, let's book in a session, and I'm not going to charge you for it, but I'll spend 2 hours with you and we'll get this problem sorted. And then at the end of that conversation, you say two things to him. You say, who do you know who is a business person who is doing this and this and this? That's your client avatar that you've created. I'm looking for one more person who fits this bill. Do you know anyone? Or you say, you've had a really powerful experience today. Would you like to know what it's like to have these conversations on a regular basis?
Yeah.
This is what it costs to work with me for a year. This is what it costs to work with me for 6 months, whatever.
Yeah.
Design a package. So you give someone the experience, and then you talk about logistics afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah. And I really like the avatar of the person who I'm looking for, building that avatar. I think that's really powerful for me.
A great place to start is use this guy on the board of directors of Maggie's, right? If he's the person that popped into your mind.
He did.
What is it about him that excites you? What is it about who he is, the journey that he's been on, the adventures that he's on currently, the challenges that he faces? And make a list. Because then if you say to him, who do you know who is all of the things, you know, if you play that right, then he's going to go, oh, that's me. I am facing those challenges. I do have these issues.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would love to continue having these conversations with you. How much does it cost? You've changed my life.
Yeah. Yeah. That would be great. I just need to visualize that, don't I? And it'll happen.
So on these adventures that you're on, you know, like you rode across the Atlantic, you're doing this 1,000-kilometer cycling trip, and you had a support team, right, to accomplish these things. And if you hadn't had the support team, you wouldn't have been able to get that thing done. And now you're entering this world of coaching without a coach. And right. And it seems to me that a lesson that would be really apparent from the journey that you've taken and the journey that you're now undertaking is that support is critical to doing a thing that you've never done before. So who do you know who, you know, is in your circle of influence, who has already built a coaching practice, who knows the pathway, who understands how to build a client avatar, who understands how to get in front of their ideal clients, who you have a personal connection with, who you would love to work with to create this new reality, you know? And how do you get them invested in your story and your journey and build a powerful relationship where, you know, in less than 6 months to a year, you could be a full-time coach with executive clients. That world is possible. You just have to find someone who can take you there. And what's the value to you of finding that person who can help you make that commitment to yourself to get that done? Because there's no doubt that you can get it done.
That person would be of huge value to me. It's the tricky bit is finding that person, because I don't know of anybody from the top of my head. I don't know who that person is. I often follow a lot of coaches on social media and Instagram, try and get some kind of information and help and inspiration. But I'm finding a lot of them don't actually tell you anything. They just say the same thing over and over again and want to sell courses to you constantly. So yeah, well, one of the things that I need to invest some time in is finding an amazing coach for me. I think definitely I need to invest in myself and find that mentor.
Yeah, find a coach and get really specific.
Do an avatar
on your client avatar.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, I love that. I love that client avatar thing. I think I definitely need to. I really need to think about that, and to put this whole career as being a coach, split it into different user, chunks that I can. So I think this conversation for me has highlighted that I was, it was too big for me I wasn't getting anywhere because it was too big.
Treat it like an adventure.
Yeah, you can't climb the mountain in every step.
Yeah, I will.
Right? Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah,
definitely.
This feels like an emotionally powerful moment to just wrap up the call, because we're coming up on time. But yeah, treat it like an adventure. Treat it like something where you've got to break it into chunks, find the team, find the support, figure out the pathway, and then just chunk by chunk by chunk, become that new person, right? You've become the Helen Butters that rode the Atlantic. There's no doubt, or the North Sea. There's no doubt that you're going to become the Helen Butters that has done a 1,000-kilometer cycling trip. And it just seems like one more thing that's on that easy list of things to knock off is chunk it down, find the support, and become the Helen Butters that coaches executive coach.
Yeah, I'd love that. That is my dream. I have to say, that is my dream.
Well, let's make that a reality. We'll turn off the record, and then we'll just have a little debrief. And it's been just most wonderful having you on the line.
No, it's been great chatting to you two, and you're brilliant coaches. Thank you.
Thank you.
So just before we do sign off, and from me as well, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. It's been a fantastic conversation. How can people get hold of your book? How can people find out more about what you're doing with Cycle Ride? Just give us a little bit of information.
So the book is called 4 Mums in a Boat, and you can buy that on Amazon. It's probably the easiest way for people. I don't know where people will be, but it's in bookshops and it's on Amazon. You can get audio version, Kindle version, everything. People can find me. We have Twitter, which is Yorkshire Rows Twitter, or my Instagram is Butters and Beyond. Or you can email me at hbutters@googlemail.com. We also have a website called yorkshiretalks.com. So if you go onto yorkshiretalks.com, you can message me from there, and there's a lot of information about all the workshops and all the other work that I do.
Amazing. And we'll put all of those links below the video for the people watching the recording. And yeah, so here we are. Thank you so much.
No, thank you.
Can't wait to hear more updates about cycling to Barcelona. When is that planned for?
Oh, yes. So if anybody's interested in that, we're setting off from Leeds on the 27th of March. Hopefully COVID if COVID allows us, it'll be the 27th of March, and we're planning the trip for 2 weeks. So people can either do the whole thing or they can do bits of it. But yeah, so that's when we'll be doing that challenge, the next challenge. It'll be really fun.
Is there somewhere specific that people should get in touch if they want to join in with that, or just by your
again, just contact me, and that's absolutely fine, and I can provide any details.
Fantastic.
Amazing.
So we'll sign off, and if we can't keep you on the line, we'll just send you a Zoom link and we can just debrief.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much. Have a nice day.
All right.
Thank you so much, Helen. Take care.
Bye.